Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in July and August. So I had the best reading month in July. I actually read 11 books and so quantity, great, but the quality of these books were also amazing. So if you like talking about books, let me know down in the comments what your favorite book is. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. On my channel, we love talking about like fiber arts, mostly crochet, a little bit of knitting, and we also love talking about reading. So I would love to have you as a part of our community, and let's hop in. So the first book I have to talk about is The Lovely War by Julie Berry. I rated this 5 stars. It was probably one of the easiest 5 stars that I have ever given. This is a young adult historical romance and there's no spice in it, which good because it's YA. This book like really tugged at my heartstrings. I listened to it on audiobook and it came with a full cast and some original scores because one of the characters, two of them, like one of the love stories very much heavily revolves around music. It was a very like beautiful experience to listen and like experience it through audiobook. So I think like if you are going to read this book, see if your local library has it or if you can like audiobook it. The story is told from the point of view of the Greek gods, mostly Aphrodite, and she is telling the story of these like young lovers and their like struggles to have love and keep love during World War I. It is just like so beautiful. I cried multiple times during this book, which I did not think would happen. It really just like kind of crumpled up my heart. The next book was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I gave this 3 stars. It's an adult sci-fi / thriller, like a little bit of a thriller, and there is no spice in it, but like mentions sex, but like I gave this 3 stars because like the premise was so good, but the execution was like kind of poor in my opinion. I wrote here, man discovers that life could be different if he had made different choices. And I think that this book is for, I think this book is for people who maybe wander into their what ifs too often. The sci-fi element of this book, there is a lot of like sciencey talk, but then when you get down to like the bare bones of the plot, like it really doesn't matter. So there's like a lot of sciencey jargon that like I didn't understand, so like that wasn't super fun, especially when, you know, reading the whole book it didn't feel like pertinent at all. And then it also like wasn't super suspenseful. Like there's a couple scenes where it gets like kind of tense, but overall it doesn't feel like, it just was so like lukewarm. And I know that a lot of people have been loving this book right now, and I just like overall was just like eh. The next book I have is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I gave this a 4 stars. This is an adult contemporary / romance, and I gave it around a 2 out of 5 on the spice scale. This was my first Emily Henry book, and I loved it. I really liked how we explored so many different aspects of our main character, January. So she didn't feel like super one-dimensional as romance books can sometimes have. She felt really fleshed out, and it was an interesting concept for a book. At the end, the writer's note says, you know, if I talk to other writers and they ask what Beach Read is about, I tell them it's about writer's block. And I just thought that that was a really explorative concept. And for like such a book to come out of writer's block, I think is like really cool and interesting. So the premise of this book is January, our main character, moves to like a small town in Michigan to clean out her father's beach house after his passing. And lo and behold, to her like rival from college lives next door. And they create a bet to write in each other's genres by the end of the summer because they both have like deadlines that they're on. And this book really, I don't know, it just was so good. I think that this was like a perfect sort of like romance contemporary mix, and I'm really excited to read more Emily Henry in the future. The next book I have is Carrie by Stephen King. I feel like I'm a part of like the Stephen King club now. The only other book I've read by him, well, you'll see, I've read 3 books by him. You'll see the other one in a minute, but before this, the only other one I had read was The Mist, which is just a novella, and like that was really good, but Carrie is his first published work. And so I feel like this and like The Shining being his most popular, and then the one we're going to talk about in a minute, the trifecta of, the King starter kit, we could say. I found this to be about a 1 out of 5 on the horror scale. I found it to be like more suspenseful and almost more like horrific in like a disturbing way, or it's in the way that like you kind of get angry. So Carrie is our main character girl. She has like telekinesis powers, and she is like violently bullied at school a lot, and she has a religious zealot for a mother, and I think that it is like an extreme take on like bullying and like religious extremism. There aren't that many like creepy elements. Like you don't sit like reading this book or listening to it, because I listened to it, and you're like scared out of your mind. You're more just like, it's very sad. It's very, very sad. It's a very like extreme case of like almost what it means to like be a girl and be bullied and have like an extremist religious upbringing. And then, there are a few elements to it. I feel like I need to watch the movie now, but I will say, like, the scariest thing about this was the cover. The next book I read was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. I gave this 4 stars, and it is a self-help book. This book is for people pleasers. A huge part of this book is choosing what to care about and, like, learning that you need to choose what to care about, because you cannot care about everything. And, if you are a fellow anxiety girly like myself, that can be really difficult. And that is something that I have learned within the past couple years, is choosing the things that you really like and, like, keeping room for them within, like, your mind, but kind of letting other things go to the wayside. Like, you can't care about everything. The next book I read was Below Zero. This is the 3rd novella in the STEMinist novellas by Ali Hazelwood. I gave this 3 stars. It is a romance, and it's about 1 out of 5 on the spice scale. I guess I should say too, my spice scale is like no spice, obviously like nothing. 1 is like maybe there's like mentions of things happening, and then like 5 is like full-blown explicit erotica on every page type thing. Like I would say like Lovely War is like no spice, and then if we're going to compare it to like a 5 out of 5, I would say like a 50 Shades of some sort. So this novella was only like 4 hours long, and I found it to be like really, really fun. The concept was really nice. It's like an enemies to lovers, but like they're not really enemies. It's more like like our main girl does not like our main guy, and like she thinks that he thinks she's stupid. Like she's got a preconceived notion of what he thinks about her, but she actually like doesn't know, because she won't actually talk to them. So it is kind of like a miscommunication thing, but I thought it was pretty good, because like I felt like it was pretty realistic. It also has quite a few like time jumps in it, but I didn't feel it to be like choppy, because like the love story itself, like they meet once and then 5 years go by, and then they're like working together at NASA. I don't know, I just thought that this was fun. If you're looking for something short, sweet, and quick, I'd pick it up. I just found it on my Libby app. The next one is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. I gave this 3 stars, and it is a memoir. I know some people say that they don't rate memoirs, but I am of the personal belief, like if you put something out there, I have like the right to critique it, just as much as like other people can like critique my videos or what I say. I'm putting myself on a public platform, and I don't give it 3 stars because her story is bad. I give it 3 stars because this girl needs so much therapy, and I do think that this book could have used an editor to help it flow better, because I was reading the reviews and someone said it comes much more off like a set of personal essays, which I do agree with. They're like a bunch of personal essays about this person's life. It also like made me so sad how this author like thought they were a bad daughter, and somehow their parents convinced her that like she was manipulating them as like a rebellious teenager, which is just what teenagers do. So like that also like made me really sad. And it's about her like losing her mother to cancer, and it's a very beautiful story. But in terms of like our author, you know, growing and changing, it's unfortunately centered a lot around the criticism that her family gives her, and then she is then guilted into forgiving them for like criticizing her entire life, which is like kind of sad to me. Our next book is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I gave this 4 stars, and it is a horror novel. So when I said, you know, it's like Carrie and The Shining, and then this I think rounds out the trifecta of like the Stephen King starter kit. That is just my own opinion. If you have different opinions, let me know in the comments below. I do have like a lot of King works, because I was thinking too, and I was talking about it with someone recently, and I was like, well, what about it? And I'm like, but nobody reads the books. That is like movie viewing, you know, where like apparently the movie The Shining is really, really good. The book is also supposed to be really, really good, but a lot of people enjoy the movie It without reading the books. The book is like 1,000 pages long, or almost. I'm looking at it on my shelf right now. It's like a brick. So I don't blame people for not wanting to, you know, read that. Anyway, back to this. I gave it 4 stars. In the beginning of this book, there is an author's note where Stephen King says, when he is asked what is like your scariest work, what is your darkest work, he says this book. And it's not because this book is not a ghost story, it's not like The Conjuring, it's not your Annabelle, it's not like a scary book, but it will like haunt you. This book explores the concept of like what it means to die. I found it to also be like really horrific and very like spine tingling. It's a book I would it's not a book I would recommend to everyone, but like I was sad and like while listening to it. I listened to this on audiobook, and like I couldn't do anything else but listen to it. The only reason why this is not a 5-star read is that I did find it to be quite long in some places and wordy, which is a common critique of, you know, Stephen King's like older works. But I did think that this was really good. I think at some point in my life I will, you know, return to it and maybe like annotate it. It just, I thought it was amazing. So the next book I have is Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. I gave this 4 stars. It is a romance, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 on the spice scale. So this is the second book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. It follows Ada and Wes. Ada was hired to fix up like the big house on their property that Weston wants to like use it for like Airbnb purposes, or maybe turn it into a bed and breakfast. It's not, maybe it's clear in the book, but like it was never clear to me exactly what they were renovating it for, but they're renovating it. Like they're fixing it up. The house is old and hasn't been taken care of for many years. So these two have like an instant physical connection where they like make out in like the first scene. Something happens, you know, the mood isn't right anymore, and Ada scurries off, and then they find out that, you know, she is the one renovating, like she's the interior designer. I think it's kind of cool when people, not when they like hook up, like fully do the deed on the first date or upon first meeting, but I like when they have like this like really good physical connection, and then there's something that kind of like bars them. Okay, so camera turned off because it got too hot. I didn't realize it was so hot in here. The camera's not even in the sun. So we're really gonna try and speed through some of the rest of these. I liked Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage, and I'm gonna leave it at that for now. So the next book we're going to talk about is The Push by Ashley Audrain. And for this one, I'm just going to read you my Goodreads review. I gave this 4 stars, and it's characterized as a thriller, but I honestly think it's more lit fic, because this is the only reason it's a thriller is because these things happen to a woman, in my opinion. I mean, so my review says, motherly despair summed up in one book. So good, but can put a damper on the mood. Also, trigger warning for graphic birthing scenes. Like, super graphic. I couldn't even handle them very much. I mean, I do, what's the word? I get a little squeamish about that stuff. But, I don't know, it's just wild. But very, very good book. Very sad book. And so, like, it's supposed to be a thriller, but I thought it was so sad. So many sad things happen. So the next book is Persepolis, The Story of a Childhood by Marjane Satrapi. I gave it 4 stars, and it's a graphic novel memoir. This book made me realize that I need to learn more about, like, world history. I was lost a lot of this book, but I think it's also telling because our main character, she goes by Marge in the book. Marjane was a child when these books take place, so she was probably just as confused as to what was going on around her. I really want to read the, like, second half of the volumes, so I'm pretty sure that one takes place when she's, like, a teenager. It tells the story of her life in Tehran from ages 6 to 14 that saw the overthrow of the Shah's regime and the triumph of the Islamic Revolution and the devastating effects of the war with Iraq. So, like, it's a very, like, war-torn story. It's really cool, but it made me want to learn more about, like, everything that was going on. So that's where I'm going to leave that. So that was my last book for July. And so for August, it was an okay reading month. I was just, like, so busy. I moved, and then, you know, I was in Chicago for 10 days. It just was, like, a lot going on, so I really didn't get a lot done. But I read 4 books, and they were okay. So the first book I read was Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I gave this 2 stars. It is a romance book, and it's about a 3 out of 5 on the Spice. I thought this book sucked, to be, like, super frank. I have a whole note in my phone about it, but I want to make, like, a full rant video about the entire series if it is just as ridiculous as the first one was. So come back to hear my thoughts on that. We'll just keep it short and sweet for now. I thought Knox is an asshole, and Naomi is very immature for being 36. It doesn't really say that she's 36 until much later in the book, and then you find out, and you're like, girl, you be acting like you're 25. Like, it could have been very believable that she was my age. And I just have a lot of thoughts that I would rather put into a different video, I think. The next book I finished was Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. I gave this 2 stars as well. It's young adult horror, and I gave it a 2 out of 5 on the Spice scale, which I don't love. There was a very explicit scene between 2 16-year-old girls, which I thought was weird. The premise of the book was really good. So the premise is that there's, like, a demon haunting this, like, island, and they need, like, human hosts and stuff. But this book needed to be cut by, like, 200 pages. It's over 500 pages long, and that is just too long. I don't want to give, like, too much away since, you know, it is a pretty fun book, but I didn't find it, like, overly enjoyable. I also really did not like that explicit scene. I don't think it belongs in a YA book like this, and it didn't add anything to the story except for, like, the other character to, like, kind of, like, slut shame her. And so I just, like, I don't know, that made me feel icky. Like, I was listening to it on audio, and I was just like, why is this going on right now? Like, I got so squeamish about it. The next book was Pucking Around by Emily Rath. I gave this 4 stars. It is a romance/erotica book. It's a Why Choose hockey romance, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 on the Spice. This is a very explicit book. So our male main characters are, like, great. I do think that our main female character was lacking a little bit. I don't know if maybe that's because the author wanted it to almost be like a self-insert type thing. I feel like Rachel was very much like a blank canvas, but at the same time, you know, not. She was just kind of a confusing character, to be honest. I don't think she was ready for like the commitments that she was making in this book. So in it, she is dating two best friends and then starts dating another guy, and they're all on this fictional hockey team called the Jacksonville Rays, which I do think is a really interesting concept for like a hockey novel, like starting up a new team and it's in Florida. Like, it was cool. Yeah, I also found Rachel to be pretty preachy, honestly. Like, when they're and you know, maybe this book needed that. I'm not quite sure, because like I went into it knowing that it was like a poly romance and stuff, and maybe some people are looking to this to explore polyamory within the confines of a book, which is a very safe way of doing things. But I also, when she was preaching, it wasn't so much that she was preaching about polyamory in general. It was preaching about how she doesn't want to be tied down, but then she tethers herself to 3 men. So it's like, but you are tied down, babe. You are. Trigger warning, there are like a couple scenes where Rachel slaps one of the main guys and throws a dinner plate at him. For whatever reason, the men don't see this as a red flag or bad, and they have like a very explicit like scene afterwards. I found that scene to be very uncomfortable and honestly in poor taste, which is why the book really didn't get a 5 stars for me. Something like that, where it sensationalized aspects of like domestic abuse. I don't know, it just like very much did not sit right with me. But other than that, I thought it was a really fun read. I will be reading the other books in the Jacksonville like Rays series. And the last book I have to talk about is Daisy Hates the Great Undoing by Jessa Hastings. I gave this a 4 stars. It is a lit fic romance. It's about a 1 out of 5 on the spice scale. Like, they talk about sex a lot, but it's not like explicit. Like, you're not reading this book because of that. It's more just like, it happens and, you know, we talk about it in a pretty casual way. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I know this is going to be such an unpopular opinion for this series in particular. This has been my least favorite book of the Magnolia Parks universe, which is like very odd for me. Everyone I talk to or like listen to online is like, this one's the best, all this stuff. I found there to just like not be a lot going on in this one. Maybe it was just like Tiller and like that going on for way too long. The ending does go crazy though. I am excited to see where this goes. I just think that it suffers a bit from buffer book syndrome. Also, I listened to this primarily on audiobook, and the man who voices Christian was so, I think it was Irish, like such a thick accent that sometimes I would have to actually like slow the book down. Still, I mean, to say it's the least favorite when I've like loved all of the books and it still get a 4 stars, like what does that really mean? But yeah, I just felt that this one didn't have a whole lot going on, and it was a lot of like repetitiveness. So on the back it talks about like Julian falling in love and getting entangled with Magnolia, and it just was so much of like the same stuff all the time. Like Julian being like, I can't be in love. Didn't you know that? I can't be in love. And it's like, okay bro, we get it. I also, one of my favorite aspects of this book though is being in Daisy's head and her coming around to Magnolia. I thought it was so sweet and like so begrudging. It's giving the dad who didn't want to adopt the kitten. And I love that. But yeah, so those are all of the books that I read in July and August. I don't know why I keep wanting to say June and July, but I think it's because the way my brain works, so this is a bit of a side tangent, the way my brain works is like every month has a friend, and so June and July are friends and August and September are friends, but July and August are not friends. So like I have had to like very hard like think every time I've said July and August, because I keep wanting to say June, July. Anyway, if you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, comment down below what books you've been reading recently. I would love to know, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!